World War I, often called the Great War, began in 1914 and lasted until 1918. It was a conflict that involved many of the world's great powers and spread across multiple continents. The war was fought mainly between two major alliances, the Allies and the Central Powers. The Allies included countries like Britain, France, Russia, and later the United States. The Central Powers were led by Germany, Austria-Hungary, and the Ottoman Empire. This war saw the use of new weapons such as machine guns, tanks, and chemical gases, making it one of the deadliest conflicts in history. In this essay, we will explore the causes, major events, and impacts of World War I.
At the beginning of the 20th century, Europe was a continent of powerful empires and ambitious nations. Technology was advancing rapidly and industrialization was transforming societies. However, this era of progress also brought about intense competition and rivalries between countries. National pride and the desire for dominance were growing stronger, setting the stage for conflict. The rise of militarism was a significant factor in the lead-up to World War I. Countries were building up their armed forces, creating large armies and stockpiling weapons. Alliances played a crucial role in the build-up to the war. European countries formed partnerships to protect themselves and their interests. The causes of World War I were deeply rooted in the political and social dynamics of early 20th century Europe. One of the primary causes was nationalism. National pride and identity were significant forces, with many ethnic groups seeking independence and self-determination. Militarism, the glorification of the military and readiness for war, was another critical factor. European nations were heavily investing in their armed forces, believing that military strength was essential for national security and prestige. This arms race created an environment where war seemed inevitable. Alliances between countries were meant to provide security, but also made the situation more volatile. The Triple Entente and the Triple Alliance were supposed to deter aggression, but they also meant that a conflict involving one country could quickly draw in others. Imperialism, the desire for expansion and dominance over other nations, added to the tensions.
The immediate trigger for World War I was the assassination of Archduke Franz Ferdinand of Austria-Hungary. On June 28, 1914, Franz Ferdinand and his wife, Sophie, were shot and killed by Gavrilo Princip, a Bosnian Serb nationalist. This event set off a chain reaction that led to the outbreak of war. Austria-Hungary, with the backing of Germany, issued an ultimatum to Serbia, where the assassination plot had originated. Serbia's response was seen as unsatisfactory, and Austria-Hungary declared war on Serbia on July 28, 1914. This declaration set off a series of mobilizations and declarations of war by other countries. Russia, an ally of Serbia, began to mobilize its forces. Germany, fearing a two-front war with Russia and France, declared war on Russia on August 1st and on France on August 3rd. Germany's invasion of Belgium brought Britain into the war on August 4th.
Section 5. The Western Front, a stalemate of trench warfare. The Western Front was the main theater of war in Western Europe. It stretched from the North Sea to the Swiss border and was characterized by a series of trenches dug by both sides. These trenches were elaborate networks that provided some protection from enemy fire, but also led to a grueling and static form of warfare. The Battle of the Marne in September 1914 was one of the early significant battles on the Western Front. The French and British forces managed to halt the German advance, leading to a prolonged stalemate. Both sides dug in, and trench warfare became the dominant strategy. Life in the trenches was harsh and filled with challenges. Several major battles took place on the Western Front, including the Battle of Verdun and the Battle of the Somme in 1916. Section 6. The Eastern Front clashing empires. The Eastern Front saw significant battles between the Central Powers, primarily Germany and Austria-Hungary, and the Allies, mainly Russia. Unlike the static trench warfare of the Western Front, the Eastern Front was characterized by more fluid and mobile operations. The vast expanses of Eastern Europe made for different tactics and strategies. One of the early significant battles on the Eastern Front was the Battle of Tannenberg in August 1914. The German forces achieved a decisive victory over the Russians, inflicting heavy casualties and capturing many prisoners. The Brusilov offensive in 1916 was one of the most successful Russian operations, causing significant losses to the Austro-Hungarian forces. However, the Russian army was plagued by poor leadership, logistical problems, and low morale, which hampered their overall effectiveness. The war on the Eastern Front had profound consequences for the involved empires.
Section 7. Global Involvement and the United States. World War I was not confined to Europe, it was a truly global conflict. Battles were fought in Africa, the Middle East, and Asia, involving colonies and territories of the European powers. One of the key turning points in the war was the involvement of the United States. Initially, the U.S. remained neutral, but several factors led to its eventual entry into the war in April 1917. The sinking of the Lusitania by a German submarine in 1915, which resulted in the death of American citizens, was a significant factor. Additionally, the Zimmermann Telegram, in which Germany proposed a military alliance with Mexico against the U.S., further pushed America towards joining the Allies. The entry of the United States brought fresh troops and resources to the exhausted Allied forces.
Section 8. The Home Front Civilians and the War Effort. The war effort extended far beyond the battlefields. Civilians played a crucial role in supporting the military through various means. Women in particular took on new roles during the war. With many men serving on the front lines, women stepped into jobs traditionally held by men. They worked in factories, produced munitions, and served as nurses and aides. This shift challenged traditional gender roles and laid the groundwork for future social changes regarding women's rights and employment. Propaganda was used extensively to maintain public support for the war.
Section 9. Conclusion. The end of the war and the Treaty of Versailles. The war came to an end on November 11, 1918, with the signing of the armistice. The Central Powers, facing exhaustion, internal strife, and military defeat, were no longer able to continue fighting. The Allies, bolstered by American support, had gained the upper hand, leading to the cessation of hostilities. The Treaty of Versailles, signed on June 28, 1919, formally ended the war. The treaty imposed harsh terms on Germany, including significant territorial losses, military restrictions, and substantial reparations. These terms were intended to prevent Germany from becoming a military threat again, but also fueled resentment and economic hardship. Several empires, including the Austro-Hungarian, Ottoman, and Russian empires, collapsed, leading to the emergence of new nations and borders. The League of Nations was established in an effort to promote peace and prevent future conflicts, although it ultimately struggled to achieve its goals.
Section 10. The Aftermath. Political, social, and economic impacts. The aftermath of World War I was marked by significant political upheaval. The collapse of empires and the redrawing of borders created new nations and political entities. Economically, the war had been devastating. Countries faced enormous debts and the need to rebuild infrastructure and industry. Hyperinflation, particularly in Germany, led to economic instability and hardship for many people. Socially, the war had a profound impact on societies worldwide. The tensions and unresolved issues from the war, along with the harsh terms of the Treaty of Versailles, contributed to the conditions that led to World War II.
Section 11. Human Stories, Personal Tales from the War. Amid the vast scope of World War I, it's essential to remember the individual stories of those who lived through it. One such story is that of Alvin York, an American soldier who became one of the most decorated heroes of the war. Despite being a pacifist, York's bravery in battle, where he captured 132 German soldiers, earned him the Medal of Honor. Another poignant story is that of the Christmas Truce of 1914. On Christmas Eve, soldiers on both sides of the Western Front laid down their arms and emerged from the trenches to celebrate together. They sang carols, exchanged gifts, and played soccer. This brief moment of peace amidst the horrors of war highlighted the shared humanity of the soldiers. The stories of ordinary people, like the soldiers who fought in the trenches and the civilians who endured the hardships of the home front, remind us of the personal toll of World War I.